What's up, everybody? TJ here. Real quick before we get started with the episode, I'm testing out a new feature called Fan Mail, which is where you can actually text me from the episode that you're listening to. So as you're listening to this, go over to the episode description, and right there at the beginning, you're going to see some text that says, send me a text message. Go ahead, click that. Let me know what you think about the podcast so far. Let me know of any questions, concerns, anything you might have. I love to hear from you. So go ahead, hit that up. I'm excited to read your text, and let's get started with the episode.
Regardless of what the situation of the problem is, you're in charge of your own destiny. You need to buckle down and work on it, and you can get through anything.
Welcome to the Keep the Promise podcast, where we help build resilient and well-rounded firefighters.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Keep the Promise podcast. Today, we're super excited to have a good friend of mine, a wonderful fire service leader and mentor, hell of a firefighter, and honestly, the guy who has talked me off the ledge more times than one. He's laughing because he knows it's true.
God.
We're going to be exploring his career in the fire service, his life, and then a couple of things outside of work. Everything he says has a ton of value, so you will enjoy this podcast. I am super proud to introduce my friend, Mike Nasti. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That was a very, very generous introduction. I appreciate that, and I hope I can live up to the kind introduction that you gave me.
I'm sure you will. And over there, you also hear laughing Josh. He's with us as well today. So we got the whole gang here, and let's get started. Mike, how are you?
Doing well.
Doing well. Good.
Doing
good,
well,
Good
yes.
to hear. Do you mind just telling us about your background, how you got started in the fire service, and just take us through the twists and turns that led you to the fire service career? Because you've been doing this for how long now?
2023 would be 22 years in total.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Pre 9/11 or post 9/11?
Right around 9/11.
Damn, dude.
So I started in the summer, fall. I really don't remember the exact month. And I was in high school. I had a pretty okay home life, but everything was starting to crumble. And I went to school with a lot of guys that all were in the fire department. They always had like the t-shirts on, and I remember talking to them about it, and everything kind of came together one time where I was going to buy a car, and there's a car dealership, and it was like $400. I just got my driver's license. I was 16. And it was like this cheap rinky-dinky, like side of the road, shady, like I would probably never step foot there again kind of place. Like, you know, like, but, on the way, and it was in Huntingtown, and it was right off of Route 4 at Old Town Road, and Huntingtown's firehouse sits on Old Town Road. So it's behind it. And, you know, I remember all these guys talking about it, having these t-shirts, and I saw the building, said volunteer fire department on it. And at the time, I didn't understand the difference between career volunteer. So I was like, well, it says volunteers. Maybe I'll go in and check it out. I went in and talked to a few guys, and, you know, now we're here.
The rest is history.
And the rest is history.
You probably know a lot of the same folks that we do from Southern Maryland then.
I mean, it's Southern Maryland.
Yeah. Very many people.
Well, I was going to say, it's you know, even now with it exploding the way it is, I mean, it's still a pretty small place.
Yeah.
First, a place that has as many people that live there, it's one of Maryland's small communities, I think. So I have no doubt we know the same people.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were Southern Maryland.
Yeah, well, I moved out here when I was like probably 10 or 12. I don't remember how old I was. How old you are in second or third grade? That's not 12.
No.
No, you're like 7,
8.
Yeah, like third grade.
Okay.
We moved out here from New Jersey. We lived up there. So
We'll hold that against you.
it's the
Cool.
armpit of America.
I know our connection. Your wife's parents.
Yeah.
I knew them from where I started volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I guess, like the loose connection that we had, because I knew your wife, I mean, ever since I got in the fire service, just, you know, I guess her dad was always a little bit of a mentor to me.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, like, early on, he's one of the first people I talked to. And then having the discussion of getting into the career side and walking me through, like, classes and certs, because he was one of the big, you know, area instructors. I mean, he was so involved, too.
Oh, yeah. He's a big mentor to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially me. He had a tremendous impact on me in my personal life, obviously. and in my professional life. And it's really funny because I knew him before I ever met Angie.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like more of an acquaintance than anything. And, you know, I'll never forget, as one of my favorite memories of him was, you know, I took classes with him, you know, that he taught, and it wasn't, like I said, it was never really like a formal friendship, but I knew who he was. If I saw him, I'd say hi to him, and that was kind of it. And then Angie and I were dating, we're seeing each other, and she's like, hey, I want you to meet my parents. And walked into the restaurant, she went to go to the bathroom, and he's like, hey, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, here to meet somebody's parents. And he just looked at me, and I'll never forget Liz's Angie's John's wife. Yep. She's like, are you kidding me? You know him? And he's like, just looking at me, and I'm like, and then Angie comes walking up. She goes, are you kidding me? You know my dad? I'm like, well, yes, I do.
Here we are.
And now we're here.
We know him. Can you make sure the listeners know more about him? Because, I mean, we know his story. We know.
Yeah. So his name's John McNeese. He spent, you know, I don't remember how many years he's played. Worked in Montgomery County, and he worked before Montgomery County became DFRS. So they were, the volunteer corporations hired him. He worked in Hillendale.
Yeah.
He was a truck driver there. He was a tillerman there for a long time. Then he became an engineer, and then eventually a sergeant. He hurt his back, ended up leaving the department. I think he had like 15 years, I think. I don't remember exactly. And so then he started working for MIFRE, doing a bunch of projects and teaching, and he was a volunteer chief and deputy chief in Ellicott City at both stations, Station 2 and Station 5. Station 5?
Yeah, so he was Clark. That's how I knew him, was Clarksville. Yep, yeah. Station 5.
You know, he had a huge presence in the Howard County Fire Department. I know that he was, I guess, part of, I don't want to say part of their command staff, but I guess they have like a volunteer representation to the Division Fire Rescue for Howard, I think. Mm-hmm. And he was involved with that. I don't remember the exact amount he was involved, but I mean,
he always had his hands in stuff.
He had his hands in everything.
He was
everybody knew him.
He was always running calls.
He was always running calls, and he was never in a bad mood. So like, he was always happy. You know what I mean? He was always he was excited. It was the fire department. You know what I mean? He loved it. Yeah. The only thing the fire department came second to was always his family. Mm-hmm. Right? So, you know, John, he worked for MIFRE for 20 years. He worked, you know, in Montgomery County, which was Hillendale. And then a few years ago, he ended up getting sick with mesothelioma. And then in August 29th, he passed 6 years ago. And I can't do the math off the top of my head. You know, and he was very important to me. And the reason why he was so impactful, and this is going to go into the other stuff that you wanted to talk about, and why he was so impactful in my life was I didn't have that home life, right? Mm. My home life took a weird turn when I was a teenager. It came to the point where I got emancipated from my parents. And, you know, I didn't have that father figure. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not going to get into the details of everything, but the long story short, it got to the point and I was like, see ya, I'm out. I got to figure shit out on my own, stuff out on my own. And, you know, so I bounced around house to house, staying on people's couches and stuff, and joined the firehouse. And, you know, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but he knows who he is. He would accidentally leave one of the side doors unlocked. And I'd sneak into the firehouse and could sleep there and stuff like that until I was eligible to actually like quote unquote live there. So I lived there. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'm going back down that road a little bit is to bring it back full circle is, you know, he was a huge mentor for me. He was very proud of me. He had that father figure to it. And like I said, it was never really a formal friendship before Angie and I became, you know, we were together. But once it took off, it was like, he was like a father to me.
Yeah.
You know, and he was proud of me. I think, and I say this to people all the time, is, you know, he was more excited about me getting promoted than I think I was. Like, you know, like he was so excited. He was so happy. I'm like, John, you know, like, man, this is awesome. Yeah. You know, I appreciate it. Thank you. And he's like, no, you don't understand how big of a deal this is. I'm like, why don't you tell me about it? Like, no, and I say that jokingly, but no, he was super excited. You know what I mean? Like my whole family was, or the family was, and, you know, it felt pretty good. And so then he switched foot where he went into like that mentor thing. So it was, you know, it was a big deal to me. Right. So I got put on day work. I was a new officer in Berwyn Heights in Prince George's County. So I worked Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. He worked in College Park. So, you know, he had the scanner on and he'd listen to calls.
For sure.
And it wasn't that long after I got there. I guess we started getting some work consistently.
Nice.
And he'd like hit me up, hey man, what'd you do? How'd it go? You know, whatever. And he always had, I don't want to say opinion, but he always had advice for everything. Like I would go to him and say, hey, Johnny, you know, I'm not really sure what to do about this. Or, hey, man, you know, this is the call that we ran. You know, it kind of caught me off guard. And like I said, I mean, he'd be like, hey, you know, so you guys ran fire. What'd you guys do? And like, so we'd talk. And, you know, he always had a book, some kind of quote, something. And he'd, you know, in the beginning of the week, he'd be like, hey, check this out. Oh, excuse me. Check this out. You know, I think it might help or whatever, you know, in early middle of the week. And we'd usually go to her parents' house on weekends sometimes, you know, at least once a week we were at her parents' house. And if we weren't there, I was getting a phone call. So what'd you learn? Like, you know what I mean? Like he'd ask you questions just straight up. Like he would come right at you and be like, hey, Mike, I sent you this. What do you think? How do you think it helped? You know, all that. And he was, I guess, that perfect mix of squirrely, but the right
tempered
guy.
Yeah.
And I think it was, and actually squirrely's the wrong word. He was passionate. He was passionate about absolutely everything. So I guess to sum him up in one word is an amazing father, an amazing family man, a really good fire service leader, and a really good father figure.
That's amazing. For what it's worth, before I even knew you, I knew that you and Angie were together. I don't know if you were probably married by this point. And I remember talking to Angie and John somewhere, and they got on topic of you. And I remember him saying that he was proud of you.
Yeah.
And what you've done and what you accomplished. And you could see how important that was for Angie to hear it too. And coming from your background, like I just, for whatever reason, I remember that being something that stuck with me. And like I said, before I even knew who you were. And then obviously over time, we, you know, hung out a little more, but
became friends.
That's, especially coming from a background that you had, like it's super important. It's very impactful.
Yeah. And, you know, again, none of this is like, woe is me. I'm not saying that at all. It's just, I think everything has its place, and I think timing is everything. And I think he did come into my life and left quickly. But I think the time here was impactful, and there's a reason, right? So I think everyone comes into your life, whether it's for a short period or long period, good or bad or indifferent. I think everyone comes into your life for a reason. And I think, you know, not getting on the emotional side, but I really, really honestly think I would not be who I am if it wasn't for my wife and her family. And cool. I truly say that. And, you know, I don't think I tell them enough how much they mean to me, and how, you know, all, how, I'm trying to think how to say this. Like how they molded me. You know what I'm trying to say? Sure. Like how that family saved my life.
Yeah. You just told the world, so.
Yeah. Well,
it's recorded.
It's funny that you say that, because there's been people that know him that have come to me and was like, hey, talk to your father-in-law. And I'm like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, it was always good stuff. And, you know, he's not the guy that's just going to like blindly compliment someone either.
Oh no.
And he's not afraid to be like, you know, tell it how it is.
Yep.
He's got that old school, like, you know, old man feel to it.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and like I said, yeah, and I truly, And I miss him. I really do. And, guys don't talk like that. We don't say that we love each other, but I love that guy. He was awesome. And I'm going to see him again one day. And I think that's going to be one of the first things I tell him.
Cool.
We talk about legacy a lot. Like one of the reasons we started this podcast is because we wanted to leave a solid lasting legacy for the fire service. And when it comes to John's legacy, it's wonderful because many of the times that you have talked me off that ledge, that you're like, hey, listen, dude, I've been there, I've done that. You're about to go down the horrible path. Don't do it. You always tied it back to his lessons and to his sayings. So
Sure.
Even years, I mean, I knew him in passing because I was, pretty new in the department and not involved with the higher ups. But that legacy lives on, right? So
yeah.
He molded you. You're helping mold me. You're molding your people. That's one of the most wonderful compliments you can have for somebody.
Yeah, and and I try, and I think I know where I came from in life, not the fire department. And I think coming from where I came from and what I went through, the things that I've been through and the things that I've experienced is something I would never want my worst enemy to go through. And I'm not saying that like a woe is me. I mean, if anybody ever wants to know, just call me and we can talk.
That comes from wisdom.
That comes from a lot of wisdom and a lot of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, hard lessons learned.
And, I do that because I felt like there was a lot of times where I was just in limbo and just motoring around and I'm kind of losing my way. And, John was a very avid reader. And when I was having issues, I would always kind of think to myself, like I always remembered him giving me a book. And he's like, hey, look this up, check this out, whatever. Well, I'm young, right? I'll read a book. I did it, right? Because I was so happy to have him give a crap about me and have someone care, not like my wife, having male role models is, any guy
huge.
knows
Absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah.
It's huge.
You
And
need
if you
the
don't have
mentors.
if you don't have your father, you got to have a role model, a male role model. And you need to have male role models that aren't your father.
Yes.
Like you need to understand that people need to be a point of authority that aren't your parents. And I don't know the numbers or the studies, but there's studies out there about people, how they turn out when there's no male presence, no father, we'll say male presence, because there's a difference between fathering a child and being a dad.
100%.
Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there's studies out there that people, where they go through their lives when they don't have a male presence in their home and when they do, and they're dramatically different.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at with you specifically, and I've told you that, I know we've talked about this. One of the books that I found that I didn't read the entire book. I audiobooked it, and there was a quote that I remember seeing, and I remember reading and listening and really looking into it. And it was the book. It was called the Horse and the Boy, the Fox and the Mole. Right? Do you remember that? Your cheese and that.
Yeah, I remember.
This is
that
very
story.
cheesy, but I'm telling you, how you interpret it and what you take away from it can do anything, right? And in the book, it's the horse. They come to a wood line, or the boys at the wood line. He's like, hey, I can't see my way. I don't know where to go. And he said, just concentrate on your next step, right? I might be misquoting it a little bit because I'm kind of shooting off the hip with that quote, but it's a quote that I like because, you're never going to know your next step when you're somewhere you've never been. But if you take your next step, always move forward, look forward, don't look behind you, and concentrate on that next step, eventually you're going to come through the wood line. You're going to be okay. So, I've always enjoyed mentoring people. I feel like I've had them through my life, but I feel like I know what it felt like when someone actually took the time to sincerely care about me. That wasn't family, a loved one, anything like that. It's a big thing, right? I had a couple people in my life from the firehouse, and they knew who they are, were very impactful to me. And they gave me advice, told me when I was being an idiot, told me when I did something right. And there's one guy that, he really, really took me under his wing. And, I really don't think I would be here without him. I would have never been in the position to meet Angela. I would have never been in the position to meet John. I don't think I would have ever gotten myself out of that funk to be able to be in the position to get hired in a fire department, take anything seriously, fell into the slump of kind of the road the rest of my family went and where I parted ways. So, you know, I mean, that's a really long, drawn-out explanation, but that's where I started currently. And, you know, everything I say and I talk about is not a representation of the fire department I work for.
Yeah, you
so
do have to
I
say
work
that.
for a career fire department in the D.C. metropolitan area. I lead people. I supervise 6 people every set amount of days. We'll say it that way. And, you know, I've been working in that area for almost 16 years now. I've been an officer for almost 8. Yeah, man, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm from.
You said something that's really important. I know we've hit on it before, but just there's a couple things. One, just having that connection that matters. Like not just having it be a transactional thing, but building connection, and whether that's a family member or just somebody on your team or alongside of you, personal relationships. That building that connection, I mean, establishes trust. There's lessons learned, and then also having, like you said, like just that figure that you know that they're looking out for you, and how impactful that can be. Like somebody gives a shit about me, and you're able to see the world through just a different set of eyes. And I think too often in the fire service, like we allow it to be transactional, or we don't start thinking about, or we don't truly understand the impact of relationships that we have with maybe our shift mates or our peers. And we let that fall to the wayside, or it takes so much longer to build, and we're running insane calls day one. Or you take a step back and you're like, you know, that person actually had a lot of value and I didn't give them enough time or credit, or I didn't put myself out there enough and let my guard down enough to be able to have a relationship with this person. And there's a lot of people that we rub elbows with every day that I think can offer up a lot, and we can offer up a lot to them. So,
you know, and it's accountability too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can be that person that cares and, you know, tries to take me under your wing. But if I'm not accountable to you, like if you don't say, you know, maybe I'm saying this wrong, but like people that I mentor or that come to me and like, hey, you know, I'm not sure what to do with this, I always follow up with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really big thing. Maybe accountability is the wrong word, but
you got to close that
follow
loop.
through.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And check in on them, check up with them. You know, because I think that lets them know that you're there. I mean, it's engagement, right? You have to engage when you're mentoring someone. I think that's a two-way street from the guy getting mentored, the guy getting mentored, and the guy mentoring. But to talk about what you said about the building relationships, the other thing too is I have sent up so many bridges up in smoke. I mean, oh my God. And what's really frustrating, and this is one of the biggest things, especially that I learned later on in my career and in my life, you know, you're standing at the foot of a mountain of headaches you're going to have to walk through, because now you want to be an officer, you want to be a leader, whatever it is. And that mountain you're looking at is your past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's, you know, you have to always try to think 10 steps ahead. You have to think of the end game, right? Leadership's not a journey, or leadership's not a destination. It's always going to be a journy. And this is something that I learned when I became an officer, and I learned in a not very fun way. Everything you do, you say, the way you carry yourself, and the way you acted before you got promoted has repercussions.
Oh, it matters.
It will visit you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come back, and you could be, you know, A1, you know, AJ squared away as an officer. You walk in day one, look sharp, be sharp, act sharp, do sharp. And 6 weeks ago, you were on the medic unit with your shirt untucked, showing up 5 minutes before your shift.
And people remember that. You're like, dude, you couldn't remember what I told you 2 days ago? but you remember that shirt on tug? Like, come
they
on.
remember everything. So that talks about that professional relationships that you had is, if anyone's listening or, people, I'm sure you guys, your numbers are out there. So hopefully this will catch younger guys and girls. Everything starts day one.
Mm-hmm.
And that means day one of the academy or your employment or when you join the volunteer fire department or you join whatever business that you're in. How you carry yourself, people will always remember. And there's people that now I still, there's tension from my past. I know there is.
Sure.
And the most frustrating part, which we'll talk about that mountain of, my past. They have every right to feel that way. I can't say anything to them. They were, if I was in there, if the roles were completely reversed, I would have completely understand and I get it.
Yeah.
And I have no one to blame but myself.
Yeah.
It is me, not anyone else, for my actions that I did because I was irresponsible, young, and I guess I just didn't care. I mean, I shouldn't say I didn't care. I guess I didn't think about things like that. I didn't think about how my actions, affected other people.
Sure. Especially early on in your career. There's totally been times where I have gone back years later to individuals in the department, like, hey, remember this time, remember that situation, and I did this thing? I am really sorry.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if it's years later, and if they don't take it, that's, I guess at a certain point, that's on them. But I've absolutely gone back years later, like, I am still so embarrassed from that. I apologize. And there's no bad time for an apology. Like there's definitely not. They hold more weight if you can do it a little sooner. It's got to be genuine. But I've absolutely done that.
I'm glad that you said that. And I'm sorry to cut in, but I want to get this out real quick too. There's a guy that I worked with that absolutely hated me. Like, I mean, hated each other. Like, I'm calling people asking for advice because I'm finding myself it's hard up for me to act appropriately, and I'll leave it at that. Like, see you after work kind of thing. And that was for years. Worked in the same firehouse in 2 different stations. And then I remember one time I called him and I was just like, hey dude, look, like I'm sorry for everything I ever did. I feel like all the problems were my fault. And I'm not saying you always have to blame yourself for absolutely everything, but
take ownership of what you
take ownership. Take ownership of this particular person. I knew it was my fault. And he was just like, I don't care. He's like, dude, that was so long ago. You think I held on to that? And I'm like, well, I thought you hated my guts. He's like, well, I thought you didn't like me because of everything that went on, and I just left you alone because you look pissed off all the time. and it made me. But this is why I jumped in real quick. Is I missed out on years of friendship with this person because I thought he was mad at me. He thought I was mad at him.
It was all in your head,
right?
It was all in my head.
Got to clear the air.
The amount of internal headaches that people have and problems and anxiety and all those things is all in their freaking head. Yeah. Like, how many times have you read a text message or had been part of a group chat and something pissed you off and you walk in when you're going to see that person or whatever it is that rubbed you the wrong way, and you're like, Mike Tyson, ding ding, here we go, and they're like, hey, how you doing? You're like, oh, hey, what was this text about? And they're like, oh, it's a text message, just mess around, who cares? Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, I held on to that.
I wasn't upset about that in any way. But it's timing and context are everything.
Sure.
So, and again, I'm sorry for jumping in real quick, but
no.
That's another example of it.
Yeah.
You got to get it out there, and you got to understand that, what's in the past is in the past. You have to deal with it in the future, and your actions will always speak louder than words. But there's going to come a time where you have to say, you have to cut ties. Like, hey, look, whether I change your opinion, like if you and I don't get along and I'm working my hardest and it doesn't change anything, let it ride.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Right.
It's going to be okay, and keep on trucking.
Right. Yeah. Keep yourself accountable. I don't know of too many organizations. You probably see it in sports, probably in public safety, but it's pretty rare how quickly you can burn your own bridge too. Like you said, the reputation, like it can take a massive amount of time to build it up.
If you
can destroy it in a second. You can build it back, but the time it takes to build that reputation back is massive in the fire service.
Years. I mean, you're looking at, you could, and I went through this. I was young and dumb. I did something at work and I got in a lot of trouble for it. And I still pay for it. And I wouldn't say I've done anything heroic at work. Like, I'm not like saving babies and stuff like that. But, I think there's been times where I know I've stepped up. I know the situation at hand, I crushed it. I know I did. But no one's going to remember that.
Yeah, for some people.
They're going to remember what I did.
Yeah. Years ago.
But you know what? You make your bed, you got to lay in it.
Yep.
And it is what it is. And I don't like it. And now it went from being judged and people being, very condescending about it to now it's more, I guess jovial is the word. It's more, joking or endearing. There's still the people that are stuck 10 years ago when this happened.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's okay. And
also a very fire service thing.
A very fire service thing. But you know what though? And again, my actions did that. They didn't just make it up. I did it.
Yeah. Right.
I know I did it. It's my fault. And what I did affected another person that they were just there. And now that person has to carry this with them for the rest of their career because they were associated with me because I brought them into it.
Yeah.
And that's what bothers me the most about the whole thing. I could give a crap less whether you like me or not. That ship sailed. I'm too old for that. I can't do it. I don't have time for that. You know what I mean? And I don't like the fact that I did that. And I don't particularly care about my reputation anymore as far as being worried about what people think. But what I do like about it is now I have a lesson to teach my son. I have a lesson to teach people that I work with, people that I know. Anyone that comes into contact that I mentor or I talk to in any way or whatever it is, I have an example of, look, I went through this. You know what I mean? I did this. It's my own doing. Hopefully whatever their situation isn't as serious or as bad. And it could be like, I came back from it. You can come back from it too. You are only limited by what you allow yourself to be limited by. And everything can be fixed if you're willing to put in the work, take the time, be humble, and forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself. I mean, obviously that doesn't count if you like murder somebody, but but you understand what I'm getting at. Absolutely. Though, right? I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, people are going to talk and you have to accept that. You have to accept that. And people are always going to have something to say. I can count on maybe one hand of how many people that I know in the fire department or really any public safety. And then maybe I'm just naive to the normal citizen people as well, because maybe I just don't know about it yet. They're going to talk. It's just the way it is. I can count on one hand how many people I've never heard anything bad. And I mean that like one hand of guys and girls that I know where no matter where you go and you talk about them at work, it's always good things. They're sharp at their job. The biggest thing, which I think means the most, is they're good people outside of work. You know what I mean? And they're very, like I have 5 fingers, right? So that, I mean, it's very far and few between. So you got to keep on trucking. You know what I mean? You just got to let it go. And no matter who you are, and no matter like, I guess what you hold, like where you are in the department, you're not important enough in the world to think, or for you're not that important enough for everybody to be talking about you as much as you're thinking about them talking about you. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, it's right? Good to put it in perspective.
Yeah. So like, you're sitting there like tooling over this for 4 hours today.
To me, that is like the hardest thing that's happening, right?
They haven't thought about you in 3 days. Yep. They don't care.
Right.
Because if they're doing those things and talking crap to you and giving you a hard time, they clearly don't care about you. You think they're walking out here thinking about you? No. And it's all in your head. And it was hard for me to acknowledge that and overcome that. I apologize.
No, that's all right. It's a double-edged sword. I really respect the people where they're their own hardest critic, because I know I am a lot of times, and there's nothing that I can say or do that's going to be more impactful about the self-talk that's going on in their head.
Yeah.
There are some people that maybe they did mess up, but you don't necessarily need to punish them or go after them or admonish them, because the self-talk that's going on in their head, they're like, I really messed up. I hold myself to a much higher standard. They're going to do everything they need to do to fix it.
Right.
But like you said, at a certain point, it serves its end, it serves its purpose, and you got to be gentle with yourself and then let that go.
Right. And
get over it.
The most frustrating part about that is, especially when you're super critical of yourself and that person's super critical of themselves, like their own worst critic, is, and this is something that, I'm trying to think how to say this, I may have experienced. If you're going to crush me over something, tell me why I did it wrong. I can't fix something if I don't know what's going on. And if you don't follow up and explain it to me, you just destroy me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to learn anything. And there's a guy that I'm trying to think of how, I really don't want to bring work into that, like work names, but there's a person that I work with that I would report to who does a really good job of dropping an absolute hammer and then telling me why. And then once it's over, like, you're going to get confronted. It's not going to be fun. And once it's over, it's done with. It's in the past. Now, if you do it again, God help you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to,
Right.
and that hammer's going to drop even farther. Like, you know what I mean? But at that point, that's accountability as well, right? So, you know, you have to have that. You have to have
Sure.
that balance
Mhm.
of, you know, critique with accountability, or accountability for if you do something wrong, but you have to explain to them why.
Yeah.
You have to know the why.
You have to
everything.
allow 100%, and you have to allow people to fail, or else you're going to get you build yourself to a place where you're just micromanaging,
right?
And you will not allow room for independent thinking,
right?
So, no, we're having some awesome discussion here. You're talking about moving mountains and self-improvement and building or hurting relationships. I know that you've overcome a lot in your past, but you've got some more specific things that you want to dig in on. So can you walk us through that?
So I'm going to say this, and TJ's going to absolutely just despise it. And, there is a quote, and I know he hates these, but and I remember watching this movie with my kid. I don't know why. It really stuck with me. And it was it's from Kung Fu Panda, and it said, "Hey, kids' movies can teach you a lot of things. They can. Especially Disney. They're catastrophic sometimes.
Dude, you're watching Kung Fu Panda. My dad had me watching Independence Day.
You're watching these movies. I'm not going to touch that one. You watch these movies, and you're like, oh my God, how is this a kid's movie? But the quote was, yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. That's why they call it today the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed. You don't know what's going on. You only know where you are in the moment. So I think, well, we were going to talk about the drinking stuff, right?
Whatever you want to talk about, bro.
Whatever I want to talk about.
It's your podcast.
It is my podcast. So,
but I mean, I think that's some of the best people, the most influential leaders, and I venture to say probably 99% of them come from struggle.
Yeah.
And I think your struggle on and off the job uniquely sets you up for the position where you are as a leader, as a mentor, as we'll dig into your podcast later on, but as that role model for people all over, because that gives you legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're Mr. Straight A, never been in trouble, rule follower, you're trying to tell me this is how you get past the conflict, I'd be like, what do you know about conflict? But coming from somebody who has been in those depths of struggle and being able to pull yourself out, it's like, okay, this guy knows. He understands. And that wisdom that you're giving me is not, maybe you got it from a book, but you have put it through your own lens, and you have digested it and brought it back to me in a way that makes sense, versus just regurgitating something that you read in, Leadership 101. This is how you deal with the struggle. It's like, no, bro, you've been there.
Well, having a personal attachment to a quote, or having experience with a situation that brings you to a quote, or if you find material or whatever it is, if you find that along the way while you're going through something, somebody brings it to you that you've worked with, or a program, not a program, but like when you go through a plan of any kind, and then you have an attachment to whatever it is. I mean, that's why it comes into being, I guess, your journey, your story.
Yeah, it's like a Northern Star.
So for me, the everything with leaving my house when I was a teenager was difficult. You know, I had role models, I had guys that helped me out, and, you know, guys that I'm still friends with today, 22 years later. We don't talk every single day. We don't call each other on, you know, every day and all that, but just randomly at some point we're going to run back into each other, and it's, you know, it's going to be, you can pick it up where you left off. My mentors have, some of my mentors have changed. There's people that I, you know, like I said in the beginning, people come into your life for a reason, whether it's for a short period or a long period of time. And I forget, you know, I don't want to say I forget how many, but like, as my life changes, those things are going to change as well, you know, and despite having good people in my life, I still found myself struggling a lot. When I left and I was alone, one of the things that I struggled with was finding somewhere to sleep where the Calvert County Sheriff wouldn't come knock on my door when I'm sleeping in my car. So I would, these are like the olden days when there was no such thing as a, like alarms on your phones, like those old Nextels and the Nokias.
Yeah. Right.
You could play Caterpillar on the Nokia, but you didn't have an alarm, right? So I couldn't set my alarm for 2 hours and then leave. So what I would do is I would drive and sleep somewhere. I'd sleep behind a Walmart, sleep in parking rides and stuff. And sure enough, knock, knock, knock. Here comes Calvert County Sheriff. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, I was driving to my friend's house in St. Mary's, and I got here, and I was too tired to drive home. Because I didn't have one. Mm-hmm. I was too tired to drive anywhere, and I needed to close my eyes. They're like, "Oh, have you been drinking?" No, I've been drinking. All right, cool. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. All right, we got to leave. Okay, see you later. And it took me a long time to realize there's places you can park where people aren't going to come check on you because there's supposed to be cars there. So then I started sleeping in hotel parking lots.
Genius.
Yeah. Could have saved myself a lot of sleepless nights. And you know, so I went through a lot of that. I went through a lot of Christmases and holidays where I'm alone. I don't have anybody to do anything with. Mm-hmm. It's just me trying to find somewhere to park, somewhere to go, but not tell anybody any of this. I'd go to school. Hey, how was your holiday? Oh, it was fantastic. We did so much stuff. It was amazing. You know, I had a great time. Like, oh, cool. And then, like, you know, I would drive back to the firehouse during the day, you know, because you're allowed to be. I forget the exact times. I don't remember anymore, but there was a time where you had to leave by, I think it might have been 8 o'clock on a school night, and then like maybe midnight on the weekends. I mean, I think that sounds right. Mm-hmm. But you could show up. They never told you when you could come in the morning. Might have been like 7 o'clock or something. There might have been a hard time. I don't remember. But anyway, so I would just, you know, go up in the holiday, go up there then and just hang out. They're like, oh, yeah. How was your holiday? Oh, it was great, man. Yeah, you know, spent time with the family, and now I'm here to hang out and staff the fire trucks. Well, I wasn't staffing the fire trucks. I had nowhere to go. I was alone. You know, and I'm not saying this is a woe is me, but, you know, it's all part of the journey. And, you know, then I started drinking a lot. When I was younger, I was a teenager when I started drinking. You know, my dad was like, you know, hey, if you're going to do it here. Like, don't go out and sneak it and be stupid and get yourself in trouble.
Right.
You know, you just drink in your house, you know, be smart. You know, and I'd have a sip it here and there, you know, whatever. But when I got out, you know, and everybody's out partying, everybody's out drinking, I want to be part of that. I want to be one of the cool kids.
Sure.
So then I hit 18. I was able to live at the firehouse and party on the weekends. You know, I used to be afraid to leave because I was afraid of missing something. Like, I'm sure everybody goes through that. And then there came a point where I just didn't care. I had nothing else to do and crack a beer, drink some whiskey, you know, whatever. And that's something that I was always part of, like blacked out all the time, you know, get wrecked on the weekends, and then I got on to shift work. I have a lot of fantastic drinking stories that were a lot of fun in the moment and a lot of stuff. And that one of my friends, he actually, every year on the anniversary of one of the nights we went out in North Beach, I didn't pass out. I think I tripped, but like I just laid there and he snapped a picture of me. And it's that obviously an old Nextel phone picture. Like, you know what I mean? Like from the early 2000s. And every year on that anniversary, he always sends me that picture. He's like, I'll never forget. And I'm like, me neither. But it was also, but him and I, we were still really good friends. And you know, he sends me that every year to remind me. And then, you know, I just partied a lot, you know, and I dated a girl that hated drinking, and I drank and I snuck it. So I was like, oh, well, she won't know. I'll just stop drinking and, you know, whatever. I'll do, right. You know, I don't know, clean my mouth with mouthwash, and she won't know, which she probably knew. I don't know. I didn't care.
Yeah,
Ooh,
She
whatever.
definitely knew.
Yeah. So then, keep moving forward. I never really had a reason to give a shit about a whole lot, I guess. I just partied it up and, got hammered down, hammered drunk on my days off. And, when we broke up, it was like a mentally weird time for me because that whole relationship really put me in a bad spot. This is right before I met Angie. And, I was drinking. Like I would leave the firehouse that I was working at, go down the street to the liquor store, get a 30-pack, drink like 4 or 5 on my way home, crush the 30-pack the rest of that night, drink another one on my second day off, drink some on my third day off, show up to work and drink NyQuil and go to sleep. It was bad. It was really bad. I just motored through it and acted, I was a zombie. Like I was just, like coming off of drinking and all that. And, it's something that, I guess when John was around, I didn't want to do anything like that because now I have a reason, I don't know. I just didn't want to. And then Angie and we would drink on my days off and stuff like that. And it was never really excessive, but she was a social drinker. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know my wife, she's a character, so we went out and partied and
involving myself,
and she was always responsible. She's always incredibly classy about everything. I'm not. I was a trash bag of a drinker and a human being at that point, and the fact that she stuck around with me or even had anything to do with me really surprises me. But so she, so we would I kind of towed it back a little bit, and we had the relationship and everything. I would drink once in a while. And, at our wedding, I was actually the sober one, which kind of surprised me. I figured I would get like liquored up at my wedding because it's stressful and all that stuff. Yeah. And my wife took the cake on that one. She was feeling pretty good. And it was to the point where I was just like, you know what? We'll just hang out and you do your thing and I'll write this night off as far as I'm just going to drink some soda or some water or something. And, I started getting stressed out with a lot of stuff. John died, and I think it was a conflagration or a perfect storm of just stress where I would drink a lot. And I just, it's 9 o'clock somewhere or 5 o'clock. I forget what the song was.
Right.
5 o'clock somewhere. And I would just drink. Mm-hmm. And I felt like the more I drank, the better everything would be, it'd be all right. I just, a lot of the stuff with my past comes up, and it's not that anything that I couldn't handle. I coped with it. And then it got to the point where somebody gave me an ultimatum. If you want the lifestyle that you have, you're going to stop. We're going to take a break from this, and you need to get your shit together. Mm. And that was, I guess, my wake-up call. It was affecting me at work. It got to the point where, like, it was bleeding into work. I wasn't, drinking on the job. But I was failing my crew. I was failing myself. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there when I needed to be. I wasn't doing my job. I had 2 rookies in the period of time, and I was a soup sandwich. I was terrible. I gave them a terrible introduction to the fire service. I was a terrible officer. I was a terrible human being. I was a horrible father. Or not, well, I wasn't a father at that point. I was a bad husband. I was a bad person. And I just, that's one of my biggest regrets. It really is, that I never had the opportunity to show my full potential. And, it got to the point where, like, the shift that I had, the department that I work for does a lottery system. So it's all seniority based when you transfer. And there came a point where the entire shift transferred out. Now you guys think about why that happened.
Jesus.
I always thought, well, F it. They don't want to work here too bad. And then it was kind of like, well, wait a minute. Why do they leave?
Yeah.
Did they leave because they suck? Did they leave because I suck? I don't know. Unfortunately, I know the answer now. Whether it may be a better situation or not, I guess once you realize that, I don't know, but I think, you know, it was definitely my fault. As much as I don't want to say that, as much as it sucks to admit that it happened, and it was affecting me at home. It was affecting me being a good father. It was one of my biggest regrets in my entire life. There's not a lot of things I regret, and that's one thing I wish I could take back. And I think a lot of things put me where I am in my life. And, you know, I think being able to be there for my kid is the reason why I changed. I think not having my dad around after I was a teenager, and I mean, again, you guys are pretty smart, so you can kind of figure out, you know, context clues as to what happened, why things happened. But I wanted things to be different for him, right? So, you know, I didn't want him to grow up broke all the time. I didn't want him to grow up wanting to go hang out at all his friends' houses because he didn't want to be at home. I didn't want him to sleep in a parking lot at 16 years old on Christmas morning, wondering what everybody else is doing. I didn't want him to look back on his life and not have a core memory of his family. You know, like, I would think about all my other friends that I used to go hang out with, and people I'd go to their house on on holidays or whatever, just to stop by, and, you know, houses in my neighborhood or my friends' neighborhoods and stuff like that. I didn't want him to be like, well, I'd rather go hang out there because I can't be here. Mm-hmm. You know, and that was a major reason why I changed. And I think overall, and I hope he never has to go through anything, but now I have a story where I could tell him, like, look, I know this may not feel like you can get through it. I know this may not feel like something you can do. You feel like you're, you know, the world's stacked against you, but this is what I went through. And I was not a strong person. I was not a smart person. I did not have a whole lot of tenacity in me then. And I got through it. But most of all, I'm here for you. I'm present in your life. I can be here for you. If God willing, I can be here for you and we can do this together. And I didn't have that. And you know, being a good husband, right? It was affecting my marriage. It was affecting our relationship. I mean, now she would she'd probably tell you I'm a complete knucklehead, you know.
Living with as any good wife would.
Living with a man child, she'll probably tell you I don't put my clothes away and I don't unload the dishwasher, the typical stuff. But you know, it really was. And you know, there's a lot of things that I regret. And she knows how much I care about her, how much I love her. I can never put into words what they mean to me. Mm-hmm. You know, I was a dirtbag for a long time. Did a lot of crappy things to a lot of people. And that cared for me and cared about me. And I did a lot of things just to get by. And, you know, I regret it. Those people know who they are. I'm almost 100% sure we've talked about those things since then with those people. And I've apologized, and whether they agree to it or not, or accept the apology, I mean, I can't change that, right? But it all comes full circle because it made me need to change. You know, I don't want my kid to get a part-time job somewhere to be able to buy, you know, deli meat and a loaf of bread and put gas in your car and splurge on buying a heavy winter coat at TJ Maxx because that's all I could afford to stay warm in the winter and sleep in a car.
Yeah.
You know? I don't want him to have to go through that. I don't want him to ever know what that life is like. I don't want him to ever. I want him to struggle. I want him to go through life events, but I don't want him to go through them alone. I don't want him to ever feel that he is alone. And I don't think I would ever be able to provide that life for him if I didn't stop the drinking. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I actually reached out to, the department I work for may or may not have a union peer support team.
It's a good thing that so many of the departments do. So people are still going to be thrown off track.
The International has one. So worldwide. No, it's international. But I will name drop someone just because of the credit that these two people need. Is his name's George Rayburn and his name's Mike Wells. And they're part of the peer support team. And, you know, people may give different opinions of how things work out. Those two guys working with me and going through this with me saved my life. And I'm not saying that because of like I would have done something to myself. I'm not saying that. That wasn't the case. What I'm saying is it saved my ability to stay in my marriage. I don't think she would have like left. I mean, I don't know if she would have left me, but it wasn't like we were on the rocks of getting divorced. We weren't separated, nothing like that. But my relationship would have gone to crap. Mm-hmm. Like it would have affected it. My son would have seen that. Mm-hmm. And they saved my life. They really did. And, you know, I honestly, I can't remember if I've told them how much I appreciate that. So if I haven't, I do. You know, despite what anyone may say about any of that whole, the way that process works, you know, it's what you put into it. And if you have a reason to go through it, it will fix it. And there's a lot of trial and error. And, you know, those guys never gave up on me, even when it was difficult. And, you know, I know I annoyed the crap out of them by texting them and calling both of them all the time. And their persistence, empathy, and understanding really, it saved my life. Mm. It did. It really did. They're really, really good at what they do, regardless of, like I said, the bad rap it may get, or the you know, guys thinking, you know, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to peer support. And, you know, if anyone's out here is listening and they're like on the fence about talking to someone about drinking, talking to someone about how you feel or whatever it is, freaking do it. Mm-hmm. Do it. And you can be anonymous, you know what I mean? But you got to do it, because your life can end. And again, like I said, not killing yourself. I'm just saying, like, life as you know it may end, I guess is the better way to say that. Mm-hmm. But you got to get help. And the best way to get help is to say that you need help. You know, and then you got to have a reason. What's your why? My why is my kid. Yeah. And I'm not saying my wife's not my why. That's a whole different reason. Mm-hmm. I think without me, she could still thrive. And, you know, I mean, I don't want to say, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't be as impactful, I guess, as a child and molding a young boy into a man. And
well, I'm sorry to interrupt. Okay. Like you've been, you're not that you've been dancing around it, but you've said it, like you, to some degree, probably lost out on that. I don't know well enough to know that it's like a generational trauma thing necessarily, and not to use a buzzword, but that is a real thing. And you saw, I don't mean to assume too much, but it seems like you saw an eventual road going down a place where you were going to be on an island, and then your son was not going to have the support network that he needed. And you talked about him experiencing, you know, some struggle. And I totally agree with that. And it's not that we're intentionally putting kids or people that we love in bad positions. It's about having them learn through life experiences. Sure. But knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that my father or the people that care about me are there to support me when I do fall. And they are going to walk with me through life side by side and work with me to give me the skills to make me a more resilient person.
Yeah. And you got to let them fail too. You have to let them fall flat on their face. You pick them back up and you're like, all right, dude, look.
And it's a safe place to fail because you're there.
You can fail. Like, I want you to fail. You're not going to learn anything unless you fail, but it's not about your failures. It's how you come back. Yeah. But then everything takes a village. Use your resources. I'm always here for you. Yeah. I'm always going to love you. You know, I'm always going to be around for you when you do fail. And I'm always going to be in your corner. Be afraid when you're afraid. All that stuff. Be afraid for you. Protect you. All that. And I didn't have that at all. You know what I mean? And I think when they go through those things, then they start coming out of them. They start coming out of those ruts. And they know that you're there. The biggest thing is the consistency, right? You could work out once a month and burn 5,000 calories, but you're not doing anything. You're not losing weight, right? But then if you turn around and you work out 3 days a week and you burn whatever, and you watch what you eat over a 6-year period, or 6-year period, I don't know why I said that, a 6-month period where you are to where you will be is completely different. And that's what I want for him. That's what I want for anyone that I mentor, specifically my son, because he's my son, right? I don't want to draw parallels with work and family life, but that's the biggest thing, is being there, being present in the moment. You know what I mean? I'm not going to fight your battles for you, but I'm going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If you make your bed, you're going to have to lay in it. And when you hit rock bottom, I'm picking you up, not somebody else, not your mother, me, because you're going to be a man one day. And I tell him that when I go to school, when I go to work, every night. Hey, dude, you need to be nice to your mother. You need to behave. What's your job? I'm the man of the house. What do? You protect your mother. Got it.
Yeah.
Roger that. Give him a task.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, in 20 years, I mean, is he going to have a kid? And hopefully he teaches him that. And maybe I can change the trajectory of what I went on for anyone that I'm related to or that's in my family and bloodline. They'll never have to go through what I went through ever again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want him to, and I don't want to harp on this, but, I don't want to have him go to school events or life events like graduating an academy or graduating high school and everyone's with their families and everything, and I'm just walking to my car and going home because I don't have anybody.
Yeah.
There's
something I picked up, and this is actually from religious circles, and you can take the religious context out of it. This is good just for what we're talking about with our own personal families, or just take it into the firehouse as a leader, just a friend. I know that I try to have relationships where, let's say it's my kid and they're like, oh shit, I just messed up. I can't tell my dad. That would gut me.
Absolutely.
Or if it's somebody on my shift,
Absolutely.
like, I just messed up. I can't tell my leader. I need to flip that conversation. Like, I messed up. I need my dad. Yes. I need my friend. Yes. I need my officer. And if you can establish a relationship that's healthy enough, like, yeah, you're going to learn from this, or maybe you did mess up, but I'm here to support you. And I will have the resources for you. And we're going to walk through this hand in hand.
Sure. Yeah. You're never going to be alone, right? You're never going to be alone. I mean, if you screw up, I'm going to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
I may be pissed off, but ultimately at the end of the day, I'm there for you.
Yeah.
You're not alone in this, ever. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care what it is. I do not care. Tell me.
Yes.
I may be mad for like a moment. You know what I mean? Like, hey, Dad, I stole a car. Well, dude, guess what? You're kind of screwed.
You messed this one up.
Yeah, this is bad. But no, but you know.
All right, let's figure it out.
You draw the parallel into the business world or the fire service, and you're like, hey, man, look, I don't care what you did. You have to tell me.
Yeah.
If I find out from someone else, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yep. Yeah.
We can get ahead of it. We can work on it. I can hold you accountable. And, I don't like doing a lot of that. I don't like doing a lot of, I'm trying to think how to say this. I don't want to call it ass covering, but like, you have to be accountable to a certain extent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you screw up, and I know about it before anybody else knows about it, we're going to work through it. That way it's, hey, this,
you can organize it a lot.
I talk to whoever's going to be looking into it. We'll call it that. And I could say, hey, look, this happened. I took care of it. This is what we did, whatever. And then that person has to answer me, right? Yep. It's like, hey, look.
You're getting out ahead of it.
Yes. And that's not to, like I said, that's not to cover anyone's butt or hide or quote unquote hook people up. That's taking care of people. And that's loving your people. That's being dependable and reliable. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to any type of leadership, whether you're leading in the home, whether you're leading at work, is it's always going to ultimately come down to caring for them.
Yeah.
Just because I'm pissed off at you and I get angry and I put you, like my kid, I put him on the steps or he gets spanked, right? And I can count on one hand how many times I've spanked him, but if he needs to be spanked, he's getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean I don't like you. You are going to be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tie my hands and I have to do something, that's not my fault. I set my expectations very high. I was clear about my expectations, and this is unacceptable. And we're at this venture, this fork in the road. And, and I want to clarify with the guys that I work with now are very good about staying ahead of that. Cause I don't want anyone to think I'm talking about like when I go to work, I rule with an iron fist. No, like they're very squared away.
Yeah.
These guys are fantastic, and they make my life and job very easy.
Yeah.
And they've admitted when they're wrong, or if we've talked about things, they're like, "Yep, you're right, I got it." They're mad at the moment. They may be mad at me, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, they always take the right steps to ensure those situations won't happen.
Sure.
And if they happen, they happen.
Well, and as things go up, if you can go up the chain of command and say, "Hey, listen, this is the situation.
Yeah.
And these are the things I've put in place to start correcting it."
Yep.
That chain of command is going to be so much more inclined to follow your lead.
Correct.
Because you're making things happen and you're acting.
Right. You're proactive about it. You're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
look," I mean, and I'm not saying you hide things, but there's also stuff that if you handle it at your level, it doesn't have to go above you. Not
Yes.
everything has to go above you, but that's what I'm talking about when it comes down to there's things that I can't hide. I've never
Yep.
dealt with this with anyone that I work with as far as my shift, but like, if you were to come in and like somebody got into a fist fight in front of me, I have a job I have to do. I have to report this.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, like, there's things that you can't hide. It's just not how it works. Look at
Right.
the news. We'll leave it. I'll leave it.
People are going to find out.
People are
Yeah.
going to find out, and everything's a news-driven world and a social media-driven world. It's going to get out. Not that I care about that, but at the same time, that I have a job to do. I'm accountable to my job as well.
Yeah.
And there's a line that you can't cross.
There's one other thing you said. If somebody, whether it's personal or professional, comes to you with a problem, they're sticking their neck out
Sure.
a little bit to trust you enough to be like, "I'm in a bad spot. This is what's happening." If you immediately just go headlong into their ass and like completely admonish them, you are going to kind of burn that bridge, right?
You're
allowed to be mad. You're allowed to be frustrated. You can even say that.
Yeah.
But that's got to be a fleeting moment, and then you got to get into action.
You have to communicate it.
You don't want to lose that trust.
No.
Because if you blow up on them, they're never going to come back to you again.
Well, you have to be able to control yourself as a leader, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to take a breath. Like, you can't just yell at somebody and tell them to get in the back office. I've done that. I've snapped at people in front of an entire group of an entire shift before, and it got me nowhere. And the reason why I got mad out of it was a joke taken out of context, which was a joke that wasn't really delivered that great. But looking back on it, I think it was the chip on my shoulder about that person because I didn't really care for that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he cracked a joke that, looking back on it now, was actually kind of funny. And instead of taking a breath and being like, "Hey, what do you mean?" Or, "Hey, can I talk to you real quick? Hey, dude, that rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I didn't like that. I'm about to snap. Are you joking or are you serious?"
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. And what do you think that makes you look like, right? Now everybody just saw how you just screamed at that guy.
Yeah.
And you look like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
You look like you have no self-control. You look like you have no command presence, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is they're like, well, if he's going to yell at that guy like that over something stupid, that was a joke that we all knew was a joke. He didn't know it was a joke.
Walking on eggshells now.
How's he gonna act towards us? I'm not gonna tell him anything. You could have that. I'm saying, they could say, well, I don't want to tell the lieutenant because he's gonna blow it out of proportion. I don't want to tell the captain because he's gonna blow it out of proportion. I want to tell the battalion chief because they're gonna make this, whatever. Not saying anyone in particular. I'm just saying that's just kind of how it works. It's gonna run right up that chain of command.
Hey friends, I want to take a quick moment to ask you to support the show by leaving a rating and a review on your favorite platform. Your support means the world to us, and it helps spread the message to even more people. We've gotten thousands and thousands of listeners, and those high ratings help our show become more discoverable, allowing us to reach even more listeners and make an even greater impact. So, if you've enjoyed what you heard so far, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. It only takes a few seconds, and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the show.
So, that first couple days, first week, first month of you having that hallmark moment and saying, "I'm drinking way too much. It's affecting my relationships, affecting my work." You're reaching out to people. A lot of times you hear like that certain initial time period is like, "This is rough. All I want to do is drink or maybe drink more." Like it's like a greater itch that I got to scratch now.
Yeah.
Did that happen? If so, how did you overcome it? What were the resources that you needed or what helped? What were the things that didn't help?
A lot of the things that helped was talking to somebody. I think a lot of it's very therapeutic. My nose is running, sorry. It is very therapeutic to be able to talk to a guy, a therapist, I mean. And then I think the biggest thing as well with it was my wife was working nights in the emergency room. And at Howard. And so I would get off of work and come home. Well, she'd have to sleep, or she would be transitioning into days with her manager or whatever. I forget what spot she was at Howard. She's going to kill me for not knowing that. But she worked all 3 of my days off. Like, that's just how that worked. And I had my kid, right? So I don't want to ruin my marriage, and I have this kid just staring at me all day long. Well, I can't drink right now.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Right? Like, I can't do this. Like, he doesn't talk, right? Not really. He doesn't get it yet. We'll leave it. I guess that's a good way to say it. He doesn't understand what he's looking at, but I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And anytime I thought about it or whatever, I'd look at it and I'm like, one drink won't hurt. Got the kid looking at me. And then I remembered, staring at my window on a holiday, being alone. I remembered graduation, walking out to my car, walking by all these families, hugging and kissing each other, and hearing people like, hey, I'm so proud of you. This is fantastic. You're going to go and doing great things. You're going to move forward with your life. All that stuff that you hear, the cheesy, stereotypical stuff, which is fantastic. I'm going to say that stuff to my kid when he graduates high school, but I'm walking past this, and there's nobody saying that to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many people called me when I graduated high school? 0.
Yeah.
You know how many people said Merry Christmas or talked to me about graduation that wasn't coworkers or friends? 0, right? No family. No one was there to acknowledge it. I was just alone.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing. Or not nothing, but solidarity. You know what I mean? And where does that leave you? If you're alone and there's no one there to talk to you or any of that, well, now you're in your mind. And all you have to do is tool in your mind. And just like we talked about earlier with the text message taken out of context, where you can't get context from texts.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, you don't get context. But now I'm in my mind, right? And the same thing with him sitting there. I'm in my mind and I have nothing to do but my thoughts. But everything I do in my life since he was born was for him. And now I'm looking at him saying, you know what? I can't do this. I got to stop. My wife could come home and just knock me out, but so I'm not really worried about it. But no, there's going to come a day where he's going to know what's going on. He's not going to forget it. He's going to remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at the point now where I have him as I don't want to say a reminder, but like I have him as a reason to have discipline, because motivation comes and goes. I have him as a reason to change who I am for the rest of my life. And I can't do that. I have to stop. I can't. It is what it is. So what I ended up doing was I stopped drinking sodas and stuff like that. I just would drink like ice water or like, whatever. And so what I would do was, hey, let's have a beer. All right, cool. I'm going to have a Coca-Cola with lime. That's what I'm going to have, because it's something that I don't drink a lot, and it's a treat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're drinking a beer, which is your social drinking. I'm going to have unsweet tea or, a Coke, which I quickly stopped drinking Coke because I'm sure you can understand the ramifications of that. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that's how I worked it out. And I did a lot of talking, I did a lot of soul searching, and, I just moved forward. And, John's not around. And I think if he was, and if I had to sit in front of him and tell him, if I had to tell him what I was doing and how I was being, I know what he would say.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not a religious person, but I think people are around, and I didn't learn that until very recently. And we'll get into all that part later, but people are around, and they show you signs of why they're around, right? And I think he was still around, and I think being able to stay disciplined was something that I needed to do, because I felt like he was there. And I felt like I could not treat his daughter and his grandson like that and look him square in the face and say, I'm the man of a family. I'm a father for a child. And I'm your daughter's husband. I can't do that. I can't stand up there as a man and act like that, talk like that, or put that presentation on, because I know there's no way I could say that to him, because he sees everything, because he's, in the afterlife. You know what I mean? Again, I'm not a big philosophical or a big religious guy, but I think those things count. I really do.
Yeah.
And, I just turned my focus. I joined the pipe band right around that time, right after he died. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And I used that as a distraction, which they all work in the fire department. They all go out and drink after stuff,
Right.
which I was like, oh, crap. Which, I drank my face off when I first joined. But, once I stopped, a couple of them asked me, and, Kim Webb, she works for Howard County.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic human being. I remember she came up to me and she's like, hey, you're not drinking? I'm like, no, I need to stop. I think I had an issue. And she's like, that's fantastic. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
She may not remember that conversation. She probably doesn't. But you know how Kim is. She's a very outspoken person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, she took time to say something to me. You know what? This solidifies what I'm going to do. And then
I'm sorry. It was that one fleeting comment where so many of us could be like, you're giving up, or
you wuss.
Right.
I don't like,
right.
Don't be a quitter, I think is what, like, some of my friends joke about it. Like, the guys I know that say this to me support me. They do. They really do.
Yeah.
But they'll be like, you freaking quitter.
Right.
Wuss. And they say a few other words, which I'm not going to say.
Yeah, yeah.
I want the show to stay
pressure is
PG.
real, because that's all we do.
Thing.
We hang out, we drink,
Talk smack to each other.
The other thing about it too, which really surprised me, which made things even easier and easier and easier as it goes, is like, especially with this neighborhood that we live in, there's 16 people in our group text of the husbands, the guys, and they all laugh and joke, and everybody drinks except one other guy, which is a religious reason. And random bars and all this. And it's one common theme is, hey, do you want a beer? Hey, I don't drink. I stopped. I've been sober for 5 years. I don't drink. Hey, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I never get the, well, why? Why? Just have a beer. It doesn't matter. When are you going to drink again? No one says that to me. Hey, man, that's great.
That's good.
They're happy about it.
Yeah.
And that made everything a lot easier. And I think that's being able to say, I stopped drinking because I had a problem. Once you start obviously letting those things out, I think you get a much more of a support than you realize.
Yeah.
Like, I think any decent human being is going to go, oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Not gonna, and there's no pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no one has ever said, don't be a wuss, drink this beer. I say, hey, man, I don't drink. No, thanks. Yeah. All right, cool. I got you. What else do you want? Well, they have O'Doul's. Yeah, all right, you know what? I'll take one of those. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that surprised me, how simple it was. And then the people that I was close with were supportive and happy. There's been a few people, and Kim was one of them, who said, hey, look, I'm really proud of you for not drinking anymore. This is fantastic. It means everything. It means everything in the world. And, there's a few friends that, over that time period when I stopped, I would tell them, hey, look, hey, we should go get a beer sometime. Hey, I don't drink anymore, but, we could do whatever. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Guy on my shift, got people drinks, like alcohol, for Christmas that we gave at our off-site Christmas party.
Yeah.
That's where we did our gift exchange. It was off-site, away from work. And I got a 6-pack of Heineken.
Yeah, the NA Heineken.
Yeah. So, but that's cool. The point, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, you don't drink, so I'm going to get you something special because you don't drink, but you're still part of it.
Yeah.
And those are just small reminders of, one, they're thinking about you.
They're paying attention.
They pay attention. They respect it. And whether they'll admit it or not, they care.
Yeah.
And that's more impactful than anything.
For sure.
And my wife, she's a very unique individual, and she likes to have a good time, and she's very responsible with her drinking and stuff like that. And she's fantastic with it. She's like, hey, look, if you don't want to drink, don't drink. You don't have to drink, and she stays within her limits. And it's a very nice, it's a very nice balance to it. And she'll probably kill me for telling you this, but like, when she does get a little tipsy, she gets mouthy. And then like I'll hear her talking to people at parties and stuff. I'm so proud of him. I never tell him enough how proud I am of him not drinking, and he's such a great father. I mean, what more do you want than that?
Yeah.
What more could force you, or what more could keep you on a path of self-improvement than that?
I mean, that's a hell of a support system. You
And
have
the most important person in my life, candidly, is saying these things. Like I said, she's probably going to kill me for it. But, you know, she gets tipsy and she gets mouthy, and that's just how she is. And never in a disrespectful or rude way, but for her to, she doesn't say things just to say things, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell, like any human can tell when you're talking about me, I can tell you're being sincere. She's like bragging to everyone how proud of me she is. I never had that growing up. And you're laughing so much because you know how she is when she drinks, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the happy-go-lucky person, which, I mean, she's always a happy-go-lucky person, but she's...
Oh, whatever. She yelled at me at the hospital so many times.
You probably deserve
I'm
it.
laughing because our wives are very similar. And my wife will, I mess with her about this. She's like, I may not be nice to you to your face, but I'm really nice to you behind your back.
Oh, my wife doesn't say that. It's why it's game on. If you deserve it, you're getting the hammer. Absolutely. But no, so that's where she, you know, because she is very supportive and very, very loving. And I don't know, again, like I don't know how to put this into words, because you'll have no better friend and no worst enemy with her.
Yeah.
Especially me, because she doesn't hold back with me.
Sure.
But the way when she talks about those things with other people, she's so proud of me with everything in my life. Like she brags to all these people all the time when she's drinking, when she's, you know, socially, responsibly drinking, of course. But like she just brags and brags and brags and brags. And my kid comes home and, you know, they're like, oh, you know, Finley told us about, you know, Daddy works for the fire department, and, you know, Daddy does this, and Daddy, and everyone's taught, like, these two people. I'm everything in the world to them. Why would I ever go back to do something to ever jeopardize that?
Right.
Why would I ever not stay on my journey?
Yeah.
You know, it's a journey. It's not a destination. It's something that's going to take work. And, you know, I'm far from a perfect person. I'm far from a perfect husband, and I'm very far from being a perfect father or a perfect dad. I guess kind of how I said it earlier, but, why would I ever not do the best I can to be there for them?
Or allow something
and allow anything to get in the way of that ever again. Could I go back and have a beer or two and probably be fine? Yeah, probably. I don't need to.
Right.
Or why risk it?
Yeah, why risk it?
But that's the point. Well, so
with that.
That's the point. There's no risk anymore.
Yeah.
I'm in total control. I know I could have a beer right now. I could crack one right here, and I know I could stop after one. And that's the first time in my life, in my 37 or 8 year, whatever old I am now, years of my life, being able to say that. And it makes me not take things and people in my life for granted.
Yeah.
You know, and it's difficult. You know, life's difficult. Life's not easy, but you got to keep it going. You got to keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure out why you're here, what you're doing, and who you're here for. And then you hit the gas and let it ride. And if nothing else, I'll never in my life forget what I went through and the things I've had to overcome, the things I'm not going to talk about today, that are going to stay in my memories. That maybe there's stuff I haven't even talked to my wife about that I've experienced that I'll never talk about to people. But, and I'm not saying that just to, you know, woe is me, but, you know, all those things will always stay in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's going on tomorrow. Go back to that quote that you hated so much, right? Tomorrow's always going to be a mystery. You don't know what's going to happen. I could walk out of here and a plane could crash into my house and kill me, right? We don't know. You know, so Jesus. I'm going to live in the present. No, you know what I mean. Get out of here with that. I'm going to live in the present.
Yeah.
And living in the present, I think, is remembering and respecting your past and what makes you who you are and why you're here. But the future is unpredictable. It's not guaranteed. So live in the moment. Do your best. And ultimately, at the end of the day, always be yourself, I think. And I think always remember why you're doing what you're doing. So that was a very, I guess, abstract or drawn out explanation. But basically what I'm getting at is you have to know your why, and they're my why. They really are. And, I think the other parts of her family, like Liz, which is her mother, Danny, Megan, my niece and nephew, I may not have ever told them how much I love them and how much they mean to me, but they do. And, the support from them that I haven't mentioned yet, which doesn't discredit in any way, is spectacular, right? And the extended family, the other side of her family, they know everything. They support me. They're happy to see me. They're always asking how I'm doing. They're always, checking in. And the one thing that I've wanted my entire life, I finally have. People to tell me that they're proud of me. People to tell me that they're genuinely happy to see me. I don't want to say like I'm a hero to anyone, but like I walk in and it's like, God damn, I'm glad to be here. I may not tell them that, and I might not tell them how much I love them, but that's my why. Mm-hmm. That will always keep me from ever going and relapsing into anything. That will always keep me on the straight and narrow. And I think no matter how difficult it gets, if that's not enough, my kid telling me, just randomly, he did this the other day. He's like, I'm so proud of you. I love you. And I like doing fireman stuff with you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I know what he's talking about, but I'm just like, it was, absolutely out of nowhere. And it was the week before Christmas. And my mom died that week from cancer. And it just happened. I appreciate it. It just happened. And he randomly out of nowhere said that. And he was telling people at his school, my daddy's sad because his mommy's sick and is going to die. And then he's like, then I had to explain to him what heaven was. And I had to explain to him why she's there. And I had to explain to him Pop Pop, which is Andy's dad, where Pop Pop is. And Pop Pop's in heaven and they're hanging out. And he's like, well, what are they doing? Are they watching YouTube? I'm like, dude, come on.
Maybe, who knows?
But so all that kind of went down. And then, this is, I don't even remember what day it was, but it's like 3 or 4 days before Christmas. And he just randomly came up to me and told me that, unprovoked, I don't know why. I don't even remember what we were doing, but he just came up and just said that. And he's like, I know you're sad and I love you. He's 5.
Kids are so random and so awesome.
And he wasn't around my wife for her to coach him. Yeah. Like it wasn't, because that's just how she is. Hey, go give it. He's not happy right now.
Yeah.
Because her dying from cancer was very long and drawn out. Mm-hmm. And it was quick, but it wasn't like, a month or two. It was over like 5 months, maybe 6. I forget, but right. And she had plenty of times to coach him and, kind of like, hey man, go say hi to dad. He's kind of upset today and all that. And he just did it unprovoked. She wasn't around.
Yeah.
She was at work.
It was probably because you did it unprovoked to him.
I don't know.
That example.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It just, yeah, man, you got to know your why. You got to know why you're doing what you're doing. You have to understand that it's going to be okay if you put the work in. Mm-hmm. Nothing's going to happen if you don't work at it.
So, question with that. We still, our professions would say you're a little over halfway through your career, just throwing out a ballpark number. Mm-hmm. Still got a lot of time left. What do you, what's your new, for lack of better words, coping mechanism when you do have a struggle, you run that bad call, or maybe you just life happens, you are married with kids. There's going to be stress, just it's the way it is.
Yeah.
It is very easy to turn to the bottle, but you don't have that anymore. So what has worked for you?
Having that peer support team, having Mike Wells, who I reached out to again. I never in my life found myself wanting to have a drink more than when I found out that my mom died. And the way that went down and why it was so difficult for me was my sister called me and she's like, hey, look, it's going to happen. I know you can't be here. I know, she lives in Memphis, Tennessee. So okay. She's like, I know you can't be here, but just so you know, this is going to happen. And they're not sure how much longer it's going to be. So I was like, all right. Well, she's like, do you want to FaceTime? I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that. And what made it more difficult was I went out there in July. And I went out in July because, just to backtrack a little bit, she got into an accident. They found some tumors and then it spread. She wasn't in great health. She didn't have health insurance. She had some dependency issues. Well, I'll leave it at that. And there's a reason why I think everything got as bad as it did. I think it was because of her addictions. And, you know, they're like, hey, look, it's spread. It's going to be, it's all over. It's in her breast. It's in her lungs. It's in her brain. It's you know, it's bad.
Happening. Yeah.
It's bad. So in July, I went out and I visited her, and, you know, I went to the doctor's appointments and stuff. And before this is the first time I've seen her since the day before my wedding, right? So you're looking at 8 years, and it was tough. You know, my wife's a very forgiving person. My wife's a very sweet person, but you know, I think even she was kind of upset about it. And I mean, just like anybody else, I mean, I don't plan on having another wedding for any reason. But you know, you understand where I'm going with that, right? So like the one life event, now I have to think about that, and that's always going to be associated with it. And it was very upsetting to me, but you know, it is what it is. And I knew what I was getting myself into, and I kind of put it in the past, and I went out, visited her, and I felt like I was at home again, right? So this, I don't know if this is going to sound weird or not, but like smells bring you back to a lot.
Sure.
My mom used the same shampoo she did when I was a kid. So when I saw her and again, this is like 8 years I haven't seen my mother, and I felt nervous. I was scared. I was absolutely terrified. And I walk in and I didn't even recognize her because she was so sick, right?
Wow.
She still, I mean, yes, she looked like my mom, but you know, watching somebody age 10 years, almost 10 years, it is one thing, but aging and then dying, knowing they're dying, actively dying, or not actively dying, I guess that's the wrong way to say that, but they're losing their fight to cancer and the effects that chemotherapy has on people and what that does to them, you know, their eyes being sunk in their head, the color of their skin and all those things. She didn't look like herself, but she smelled like my mother. And the way, and I'm that stereotypical Italian mama's boy when I was little, before all the craziness happened. And you know, I felt like I was a little kid again. Yeah. I felt like it was my mother. You know, I felt safe. I felt like everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. But I knew we weren't. Mm-hmm. I knew no matter what I did, it's not going to change anything at all. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up as far as the drinking stuff was when I left to come home, to drive home, because I drove, which was a terrible idea. Because then now what am I doing? I'm in my head. And that's where I got that book I told you about, was moving forward. I'm going to misquote the book now, so I'm not going to sound intelligent, but it's the one with Dakota Meyer and Rob O'Neill, The Path Forward, I believe. Is that what it's called? The Path Forward? I think so, yeah. So I listened to that. Well, guess what I'm doing? The entire 13-hour drive is I'm in my brain, but I'm listening to this book about overcoming adversity. But knowing when I left, that was that would be the last time I would ever see her alive, made me want to have a drink. I have 13 hours to drive. Angie would never know if I had a drink. Finley would never know if I had a drink. John would know. I would know. And, you know, I mean, we all have skeletons in our closet, and there's things we don't talk to people about, right? And I say that jokingly, but I can't do that because I want to be able to tell my kid whenever he gets into an adverse reason, like, hey, I don't know if I can keep going. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Well, hey, bud, let me tell you about what Daddy went through. Let me tell you how difficult this was. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. So then I came back. Christmas was something, which is really weird because I had my mother was Jewish, but this is also back in like the 90s when no one cared about your religious background and everybody celebrated Christmas in school.
Right.
So I did the you know, the Jewish holidays and stuff like that because my mom did them. My mom liked them. I don't remember a lot about it, which is really upsetting because I really wish I did because that could be something I could keep. I might get back into it. I don't know, but she did Christmas with us. Christmas was huge. She did it wasn't like a ton of presents or anything like that. It was just being around, looking at Christmas lights and how important Christmas lights are to us, right? Or how much we like looking at the lights and stuff like that. So, you know, fast forward now, she passed away a few days before Christmas, and I'm surrounded by Christmas. I'm surrounded by the lights. I'm surrounded by my kid that wants to look at the lights and you know what I mean, and all the decorations and how much he enjoys them, and all I'm over here wanting to do is drink. You know what I mean? Like, but I can't because he's there, and he's old enough to know. And if I sneak one, I'm gonna know that I did it. John's gonna see it, and my mom's now gone. I'd like to think she's around. You know, I would like to think that we had a rapport, and that was one of the why it made it so difficult was we were reconciling, and we were talking. I'd call her once a week, shoot her a text, but then there came a point where she didn't know who I was anymore. I would call her, and she would think I'm my dad. She's like, "What are you talking about? My son lives with me." Well, that was my brother-in-law. It's my sister's husband.
Oh,
right. So then, you know, you get the wrath of that, and I'm like, well, all right, well, I gotta go because I'm afraid. I'm scared. You know, I'm lonely again, and I'm in that place where I started feeling those same emotions of being alone as a child, being alone as a teenager, not having anybody around, not having anyone to tell me that they're proud of me, none of that. You know, and I'm back in that. I'm not in that slump because I have my family that I have now, but those emotions, the way those things feel, will come back. You can, I don't want to say trigger because I hate the triggered word, but you know what I mean. Like things can make you feel those emotions can come back. They can remind you of things. Smells bring you back to things. Emotions bring you back to things where you'll go back into a mind space. Well, what happens when you do that? You start thinking, and now you're in your own mind. And this is the first time where I wanted to drink, and I knew I could. I don't want to say I knew I could get away with it, but the opportunity to get away with it was very easy, and I didn't. Because I can't. Because there's people there now that care. So instead of dealing with things alone and by myself, I have people that care. I can talk to my wife. I can hit up peer support and say, "Hey man, I'm struggling. I need some help." And they connected me with people to do some grief counseling and talk to them. And, you know, and I was struggling with it. You know, I really was. And it, I've been through a lot in my life. I really have. And I'm not saying that for like, woe is me, but, you know, my mother-in-law actually says this to me a lot. She's like, if you would have followed the trend of your family, you probably could be dead right now or be just like them.
Sure.
You know, but I'm not going to do that. I have a reason to be around. I have a reason to thrive. I have a reason to live a good life and work hard and not give any of that up, you know, and that's my kid. It really is. And again, like I said before, I'm not discrediting Angie in any way, but like, you know how she is. She'll be fine. She can survive in
she'll be fine
in a nuclear holocaust and probably somehow take over the world. Like if the zombie apocalypse happened, she would be Negan and she'd probably be ruthless. If you guys watch The Walking Dead, but you know, she's going to survive, but he's innocent. He doesn't know his way yet. You know, his life revolves around baseball, running around outside, chicken nuggets, and now Minecraft.
Yeah.
And I know when he gets older, I'm not going to protect him and shield him from things, but I'm going to do everything I can to be there for him. So that's why I did the grief counseling. I did a lot of that. It was all by phone, and you know, I talked to them a few times, and I think I got what I wanted, what I needed out of it. And I was struggling. I really was, and it was the first time where I didn't know if I could hold back. Instead of being like, I could go for a beer, somebody like, "Hey man, you just want to sip? Like, it's all right." And I'm like, "No, I'm good. All right, cool." And that was it. You know, and this is the first time where I was just like, well, maybe one drink won't hurt. And then the immediately was, John's watching. My kid's here. My mom's watching now. My mom knows I don't drink anymore and knows why, because we talked about that while I was out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She even tried to get up and make me food. I'm like, why don't you just chill? Because like they were in the middle of moving and stuff to get her to a better living condition, I guess. And I don't really want to get into that, but where she was not ideal for someone, any human being, much less someone that's super duper sick. And, you know, I figured if she could go out of her way like that, I could continue to stay on the path that I'm on. So
you said something pretty profound. And I don't know if you realize you said it. I think all too often people place their happiness in other people or other things. It's okay as long as you realize that so many things can be taken from you. Like those things can't necessarily be dependent. Your happiness can't necessarily be dependent on those things.
Sure.
And you said that, if you had a drink, you would know. Like you said, I would know. And it just goes to show that, you were still probably your biggest critic in a good way. And that you realize that it starts with you.
Sure.
You can't blame anybody else.
Yep.
And by making those decisions, you have to live with yourself and your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reason enough to not have that drink and to do the right thing and to hold up your end of the bargain. And then that does spread out to the people that you love, because your wife and your kid, maybe that they'll be disappointed, whether they're disappointed or not. By letting yourself down, you've let them down.
Well, and the other thing too is, like I talked about before, of standing at the foot of a mountain of problems I created for myself. Well, now life's coming back around full circle.
Mm-hmm.
And now, there's actually, TJ's going to love this. There's a fantastic book that was suggested to me by a coworker and a friend of mine. The guy works on my shift. He's probably one of the most intelligent people I think I've ever met. He really is. And the book's called Left of Bang. And I know I've talked to you about this book,
Mm-hmm.
and I always like it because I feel like when I talk to you about different books and things, I can hear your eyes rolling in your head. I love it.
Some I've read that one.
So, but Left of Bang, the entire point is, bang is the situation and whatever it may have, right? You don't want to be at the bang. You want to be to the left of it, which is beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize it. You know there's an issue, and now you're seeing it like it's in motion. So when you're right of bang, it's too late. You're reacting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now bang would be me having a beer.
Sure.
Right? Staying left of bang is, well, wait a minute. Last time I did something dumb. I didn't care because I just did whatever I wanted. Now I recognize this could be an issue. I'm gonna reach out to peer support. I'm going to talk to some friends. I talk to my wife so I don't, forget to give her credit. But, it was the most difficult thing I've been through emotionally. But I felt like I was in a place now where I had the ability to recognize it. I have the tools in place to execute it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the confidence to do it, which I never had before, ever, with anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that I care what people think, but there's no peer pressure. There was no worrying about what other people think. Like that was, and that's only coming up now because we're talking about it. It has never been in my mind. I've ever worried about what other people think since, I don't know, probably last year, which took me a long time. But what I'm getting at is I don't give a crap who you are, whether you like it or not. I'm on this path,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only people I care about, there's two people in this world that I will put every concern into their opinions. It's my wife and my kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. I know you're that way with your family, with what you've been through.
Absolutely.
I know TJ's been was that way with
Michelle.
No, I wasn't thinking that. Do you have a dog? I can't remember if you have a dog or not.
Ducks.
8 ducks.
You have ducks. Yeah. TJ has his ducks and Michelle.
You're right.
I was trying to remember how many ducks you had. I knew you had, I couldn't remember if you said you had a duck and some dog, or a dog and some ducks, or if you just had ducks. And I should have asked you beforehand. But anyway, you have your family. I have my family. TJ has his livestock and his fantastic girlfriend, Farmer Fran over here. But, and that's it, and so everything revolves around them. And I couldn't allow myself to give up what I've worked for, because I came from absolutely nothing. And now my son will have a life that I never had, and I always dreamed of, and I always wanted, and I worked for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You know how much there is to lose.
You know how much there is to lose. You know what it took to get here. and you know how easily it can go away.
Mm-hmm.
It can go away in the drop of a hat or
one drink.
Drink. It can go a drop of one drink can ruin all of that.
Yeah.
Is there a point in my life where I think maybe I'll have a beer here or there, or maybe I have a glass of wine once in a while? Maybe, but that's a different chapter. I don't know where that chapter is.
Right.
That chapter could start next year.
Yeah.
That chapter can start whenever, but the whole point is control.
Mm-hmm.
I could have a drink. I could go upstairs right now. Stereotypical, right? There's Truly and High Noons in my refrigerator. They're not mine.
Yeah.
My very basic wife with her little drinks. I mean, I could go up there and get absolutely wrecked if I wanted to, and nobody would ever know.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't have a clue. But I'm not doing that because
Right.
that's not the chapter I'm in my life yet.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's just, you know, the road that we're on, or the road that I'm on, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to know if you stuck out whatever path you're out on, and that can go into anything. You know, I mean, obviously our wheelhouse is the fire department, right? But that's anything you could do. You do that in your firehouse as a captain. You do that as the technician. You know, whatever goals you have to strive. You're the only one that's going to get in your own way, and you're the only one. Why are you laughing so much? You're the only one that's going to get in your way, but you're also the only one that's ever going to make it happen, get traction, see it through, and be successful, and be disciplined to continue it. And that's with everything in your life. I don't care if you're a CEO. I don't care if you're a firefighter. I don't care if you're a cop. I don't care who you are, where you are in the fray of life. It's all about you, and it's all about discipline. Even if you're an angry technician, like somebody over here that's cheesing so much.
Not angry.
But no. And I say that in
Passionate.
jest.
Passionate.
Yeah, that's one word.
Emotional. But you know, I mean, if we're not gonna set out on a goal and follow through with it, why are we doing anything?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would you have kids if you're not going to give 110% of your life for everything? I would lay down my life for my wife and my kid in a heartbeat. I wouldn't think twice. I don't care what it is. Hit by a Mack truck, burned to death. I don't care. I will do that for them and not even think twice about it, or even regret it, or not regret it, but I would do that without ever hesitation in any way, under any circumstance, at any time, regardless of how old they are, ever. And if I'm willing to do that, why wouldn't I be willing to stay the path, stay the course, be a good man, and most of all, I mean, I don't have a daughter, but daughters marry their fathers, realistically. And I hear it all the time from my wife and my mother-in-law. Oh my God, I married my father. Oh my God, I married John, right?
Yeah.
And the way I look at a lot of this is, you know, if I could ever be half the man that he is, I'm doing something right.
Doing all right.
And if I could be half the man that he was, if I could be half the man that he was, I'm going to be a fantastic human being for my son, a fantastic husband for my wife, and hopefully, and sometimes I spin my tires in the mud with this. Hopefully, I'll be a good officer at work. Hopefully, I'll be a good leader. And, you know, sometimes you lose your direction, you lose your way, and that's okay. You just got to keep on rolling, rocking and rolling. And those are the reasons why I don't think I would have a drink anytime soon. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I know that was very, very long-winded, but I think that, you know, you have to think about the end game. You have to think about why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really long, drawn out explanation, but I mean, that's my why, man.
Yeah.
That really is. And that's why I'm here. And that's, you know, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Now you have your mission. You know what it is in life.
Sure.
And I know I've totally said that before too. Like you would die for this cause. You would die for the service. You would die for your wife and your kids.
Sure.
And not to be corny or what you hear on social media or some of the buzzwords, but like the challenge is, would you also live for them? And in doing so, we can flip that conversation. And yeah, it's very easy to say, I will die for you.
Sure.
And actually, I remember once, young, naive, said something to that effect to I think she was just my then girlfriend at the time. But I was like, I don't need you to die for me. I need you to be here. I need you to communicate with me. I need to support. Like, I want you. And by you taking the alcohol out of the mix, having a clearer picture, you are able to live and be there for them. And I think that's what that's what we need. We just need more people to take care of each other, be kind to each other. You know?
Yeah. And, and it's going to get TJ again.
Damn it, man.
But,
like a punching bag
you
today,
are,
bro.
what? Targets of opportunity, target-rich environment, they said on Top Gun, right?
Right.
It's a target-rich
Just
environment.
one. Pick
But,
on Josh for a change.
Okay. But the movie The Last Samurai, you ever see that? It's cheesy and corny, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that if you deep dive into like the leadership stuff that I've been doing, there's a lot of examples of living a good life in a lot of those. And one of the things is, at the end, Katsumoto died. He was the emperor.
Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen it by now, then that's not my problem.
Bro.
But you should go see it.
Well, not anymore. You spoiled the end for me.
Well, I mean, if you think Tom Cruise is going to fly a jet and then go ballistic, Mav, and buzz the tower in Japan, that's not what's going to happen.
Listen.
Different Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah,
So
everything, like every fiber of my Embry-Riddle being has to defend Top Gun.
Yeah, Top Gun is amazing. But getting off topic. Let's come back to center. But sorry. But the Katsumoto was the emperor of the samurai, and at the end, he died at the end of the movie. They were fighting the Imperial Army or whatever that had the Western influence, and at the end, the emperor, who was the nephew of the samurai emperor, he's like, "Hey, tell me how my uncle died," and he's like, "No, I'm gonna tell you how he lived." So that talks about everything you just said.
Yeah,
it's not about the ending. It's not about I would die for them. Well, I mean, it is.
That's important. That's cool.
Incredibly important, right? But it's also how you live for them, how you carry yourself, what you do with your life, where you go with your life, the time you spend with them. There's been plenty of times where my son wants to do something, and I'm exhausted. I don't feel good. I'm just not in the mood. And I stop what I'm doing and I do it.
Yeah.
Right? And the bad part is he pulls one over on me a lot. Hey, I know you're tired, but I want to go do this. I'm like, no, buddy, daddy's tired. He's like, no, come on, please. And I'm like,
yeah.
All right, don't tell your mother. Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? Right. But it's all about that. And the way you live your life is not about what you put on social media, what you talk about, or any of that. It's your actions. And it's the things that you do that will always last for eternity, right? So, think of, and you guys everybody has parents. So, you think about those core memories. Was it ever like your dad saying, hey, I would die for you? No, it's not. It's going to be your dad dressing up as Santa Claus for the 5th year in a row.
Right.
And he's Santa.
Right.
He doesn't know you're Santa. But you're always out kissing mom. And I can see that beard is fake. Those are the things that, you need to live for them as well, as you said.
Yeah.
So,
no, I love that. You just touched on it, finding that mission in life. You have that next mission, or an additional mission, we'll say.
New direction.
Yeah, another direction.
Yeah.
Kind of wrapping this conversation up a little bit. Sure. What is that? What is that mission?
So when I was out in Tennessee and I was with my mom, I remember the drive to the doctor's office was like a good 35, 40 minutes. So you had to go from downtown Memphis in the project area. So that's like South Memphis, I think. And we could call it South Memphis for ease of conversation. Right by the Mississippi. Is that the Mississippi River? Mississippi River? I don't know. It's by the ballpark and the hospital.
Never been.
Yeah. Well, if you ever, I wouldn't go now, but if you ever Google it, there's a large ballpark. It's near, I think that's the largest Bass Pro in the world, I think.
Oh, wow.
The one right there, it looks like a pyramid. The south side of that. So anyway, so it was like a good 40 minutes from where she lived, 35, 40 minutes, because she lived in the outskirts where she was, her new place she was staying when she moved out of downtown, And so you had to go in and there's a lot of traffic. So in that time, we had time to talk. And, she was like, hey, what do you think you want to do? Like, you can't work in the fire department forever. It's kind of like,
Yeah, I can.
What? Do whatever the hell I want. No, I didn't say that. But I was like, oh, I don't know. Like I was thinking about doing like a pizza truck. You know, that was an idea I had for a long time. And I don't really know how the hell to do that. But I mean, there's a lot of things in my life I jumped in with both feet and just figured it out along the way. And she was, I forget how we got in the conversation, but like we had something to do with talking. She's like, yeah, you've always had a knack for talking. You're just, you know, you're always so smooth. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, like you could be a good podcaster or something.
Like
or
DJ Nasti.
Yeah,
Ooh.
like a DJ. Yeah. And, you know, she told me that. She's like, well, you should start a podcast sometime. And I'm like, doing that? Sound like an idiot. Like, what the hell to do? What? Like, is your chemo getting to you already? No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, flash forward when she died and we started doing the grief counseling. One of the things because I had several sessions where I talked to this person, and right around the time that happened, so I was off for bereavement for a shift. I came back, and I got hurt at work. I tweaked my back. It's nothing crazy or serious, but I was off to do some PT and get some treatment, and I'm back to being alone. My mind's going. I'm tooling. Brain's tooling. The bougie white girl drinks are in the fridge 20 feet away. I can have a drink if I wanted. Nobody would ever know. I didn't really think about that. I'm just, you know, I guess tying in everything together.
Yeah.
And, one of the things they talked about, they're like, hey, look, why don't you just write about something you like talking about? Talk to me about something you like talking about. Talk to me about, let's stop the sad stuff. Let's stop the woe. She didn't say woe is me, but, you know, the woe is me stuff. And she's like, well, talk about something you like. So I started talking to her, and, you know, we were chit-chatting back and forth a little bit or whatever, and she's like, well, you like leadership and stuff. She's like, have you ever thought about just doing like a personal blog? And I'm like, no, I never did. And so I was like, all right, well, let me start looking up on the internet. I'm going to look for blogs. And I don't know how to do a blog. I don't know how to write. I write like a 5-year-old. Like, I'm terrible with spelling and grammar. Like, if I don't have spell check, you might as well come talk to my kid, because that's about what you're going to get out of me in written communication. I'm terrible at it. So I don't really see myself as much of a blogger. And, you know, we talked about some leadership stuff, and I thought about it. I'm like, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I had no idea about. And then the next thing I know, like, I'm on my phone and I'm just like typing, because I can do that with, I have the spell check and the grammar stuff. And then I have like 2 hours of typing straight, just tons and tons of stuff that I wish I knew. I wish I didn't screw up this. I wish I never did this to that person. I wish I never acted this way in that situation. I wish I never handled this way. I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have done that. You know, I kind of repeat myself, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And a good friend of mine that, well, he does a Facebook or an Instagram page. It's called Firefighting Chief. His name's Frank Malta. He's a battalion chief here in Frederick. Well, I forced my friendship on him, and, you know, I just, you know, whatever. And I was like, well, he does that. And I talked to Mr. TJ over here dozens of times about stuff with the keeping the promise things and stuff like that. I'm not saying I had a hand in any of that, but I thought to myself, like, you know, he's doing a lot of really good stuff, and, you know, he's been through a lot. He's got a lot going on. You guys have both been through a lot with stuff in your careers. I'll just leave it at that. And you guys started talking about it and talking. I'm like, well, it's a different situation, but that's got to make them feel better talking to people. That's got to make that they change their life, or they put themselves on a path in their life to do something about it. And I was like, well, maybe I should try that. So let me open up an Instagram. Tip of the spear leadership. What's important to me? 14 points of Marine Corps leadership. That was something that was brought to me by a guy that I work with. And over time, I've tried to do my best to, I guess, follow them and all that. So I was like, well, I'll start writing about that. I'll take pictures of all the fire. I'll take the pictures I know I have of calls I have been on. And I'm starting to run out of those. I guess I don't run enough calls. I don't know. But I say that jokingly, but, you know, that's what I started with, was stuff that was important to me that I thought was important. And I was never in the military. I have no ties to it. My grandfather was in the Marines, and he talked to me about a lot of that stuff before he passed away as well. But, I'm not by no means claiming military experience or knowledge in any way, but those are things that I learned about, and they really helped me. And I think that really put me on a course to be better. So I just thought about stuff that I wish I would have known, or things that I would have thought of, or lessons that I was not particularly happy that I went through. And I just started doing something every day. And it came to a point where this guy, his name's Chris. I think his name's Chris. He's out in Seattle, and he just randomly hit me up, and he's just like, "Hey, dude," because I did a podcast. Somebody else, another guy, Kitchen Table Podcast, just hit me up and was like, "Hey, I like your stuff. Do you want to be a guest?" So we started talking, and an hour and a half later, this other random person I've never met before is like, "Hey, dude, like, you owned that podcast. That was freaking awesome. You should do a podcast." I'm like, "I'm not doing that. You're crazy. I'll do an Instagram live and we can chat." I'm like, "I don't give a crap about like where this goes. Like, I'm not going to do any of this." And, for years and years and years, my Liz and my wife always say, "Oh, you're just like John. You're just like John." Well, one of the things they always talked about is you can talk to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk your way out of a paper bag. You make friends with people that normal people would not make friends with. And they like you.
Yeah.
You're not the weird guy at the party. You're not the, the crazy guy in the bread aisle at Safeway getting a fight with the bread. Like, you know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right.
You're actually, people draw you in. And I know TJ told me this before too, the same thing too. And I just said, you know what? F it. I don't care what other people think. I'm going to do it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea where to start. So I got on old Google and I jumped in on it. And that was kind of where it all came from was,
Mm-hmm.
it was, I don't want to call it therapeutic, but I was off of work because I was hurt. And I'm back to work, but my mother talked to me about a lot of that. And I was I was struggle busting really bad. And, what I talked about a while ago was, you get signs. And my friend Diane, she told me about a book, and I should have had the book in front of me so I can remember what it was called. But people in the afterlife will give you signs, whether, whatever it is. You'll figure it out. It's hard to explain, but there'll be ways to connect with them to where, and there's actually a Netflix series as well, where you will, you'll pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I just got a random inclination and a random I was like, well, maybe, my mom talked to me about this. Maybe I should try it. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't work out, I can delete it and no one will ever know. Well, I mean, people will know, but like I can delete it, it'll go away. And I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why not download my brain? And maybe that's new coping is just, I'm really upset today, which happens. I mean, the grieving process for somebody dying is difficult. And I regret so much of not trying to reconcile earlier. And I blame myself with all of that.
Seriously,
doesn't have hope either.
Trust me, neither do I. But and this part, this is really difficult to talk about. But John dying, my mother dying, and it's just stuff that I felt like I'd never had enough time once things changed. Right. So John came into my life. We were friends, or whatever. Which he's an acquaintance at that point. So I mean, you don't know where your life's going to take you, but once I became part of the family and I was in, with Angie, I mean, this is the crazy part about this, right? So our first date to when we got engaged was 6 months. He was sick at our wedding. Our engagement was in December. Our wedding was in September, and he was very sick. So that just shows how compact that time in my life was.
Yeah.
This is almost 8 years. God, I should know that. September 25th. However long that is now, 8.5, we'll call it 8.5 years, is so impactful in everything I do in my life. My mother, we reconciled, and just for conversation's sake, we'll say April of when we reconciled, started working forward, and then I visited her in July, and it was actually December 21st, she died. Small, super duper small periods, extremely impactful. And I mean, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And, these people in my life are saying the same things. You can talk to anyone. You can sell ketchup popsicle to a lady in white gloves from Tommy Boy. Like, you know what I mean? But it's genuine, right? It's truly from the heart. And, you know, it's stuff that really means a lot to me because I didn't have a lot of that coming up. I had a lot of really good mentors and a lot of really good people that helped me along the way as a lieutenant. And it's my therapy and coping to get through how difficult it is by trying to help someone else. And, you know, there's statistics out there by how many people you meet in your life. The way I look at it is if any of this can help any one guy or girl coming up, starting out, whatever, if I can impact one person, just one. I'm not saying I'm the Messiah or like this fantastic, you know, officer that everyone's going to talk about for years. I'm not saying that. I don't care about that. If I can affect one person in their life to help them be better, mission accomplished.
And that one person will have a ripple effect. And that one person.
And then you go to whatever those numbers are, right? I think you meet, I forget that it's an insane number of people. It's like, I think it's like 7,000 people you meet in your life. That number's probably wrong, but it's a lot of people that you will meet in your lifetime on average. Well, if you think about that, if you can, you know, impact one person, they impact one, they impact one, they impact one, they impact one. I mean, where does it end? It doesn't. And that ripple effect goes forever. And the biggest thing with that as well is, and this is off topic of the podcast part, but I have my one person that I know I'm going to make a difference with, and that's my boy. And in his life, I want him to make a difference in someone else's life. You know what I mean? And, you know, you should always, your actions will speak louder than everything, right? You can talk about and say about and be about whatever it is that you want. And something that I just thought about while we were talking, and this is not something I've really talked to a lot of people about at all. And this is going to tie in a little bit of why I kind of got into what I got into. So 4th of July in 2021, our whole family was in Dewey, and we went to Fenwick Island. And I'm not saying any of this to brag. This is just I think this ties a lot of things together of kind of where I'm going with it is we were out doing whatever. We were on the beach, 4th of July. It was actually July 4th. And we were out there, and the next thing I know, my wife's like, hey, they're doing CPR on somebody over here. They're dragging this person out of the water. And you could tell the person was young. Like, it was a teenager. She's like, we need to go. And, you know, I did what anybody else would do. I face planted. I immediately straight down on the ground. I tripped and I had sand in my teeth. Like, I looked like an idiot. I looked like the Swamp Thing getting up, but
it's me every time we get a call at work.
I ran over. Yeah, exactly. I ran over there. You know, we ran over there. My wife and I. The beach patrol were getting there. Just bystanders were starting CPR. The beach patrol showed up with AEDs and all that. And you know, we were bagging them. They were doing CPR. They were kind of rotating through, and it was a little chaotic. But I mean, my thing is like, this person drowned. It's cardiac arrest, whatever. Not whatever, like I don't care, but like whatever, like, I mean, I've done this. I've been part of this a lot. Sure. Hey, guys, you do CPR, you watch the AED, you press that button before anybody gets off, you're going to shock them. Don't touch them. You know, hey, I need you. You do this, you do that. And it was just like boom, 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 boom. And, you know, they're like, oh, she's not going to make it. We got to drag her out to the parking lot, you know, whatever. And I'm like, no, we're staying. We're going to do, you know, we're going to do at least our 10 minutes of CPR. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep it moving. And long story short, maybe a few minutes after that, she threw up water, and then she started sucking on the bag. Well, that's Rosk, right? Yeah. You know, she's back. Well, she started, you know, she wasn't in cardiac arrest anymore. She had a pulse. She had everything. So they got up, you know, they got to the ambulance or whatever, and she ended up surviving. They flew her to a trauma center or whatever. And we were done, and I had some blood on me or whatever. So I was washing myself off, and they, you know, the DNR kind of got my number. They're like, hey, look, we got to do a police report. You know, you touched her. Like, if wherever this ends up, we have to do whatever. And I was like cleaning off, and I look over, my kid's looking at me. And that turned into like me thinking about everything. And 12 hours later, I get a text message that she's alive. She's talking. Her aunt texts me. Like, I talk to her aunt somewhat regularly, and she feels free to say things, you know, hey, how you doing, all this. And this woman's alive now. She's in college and all that. And my kids saw that. And the reason why I bring that up specifically is the beach patrol and the people there that day were awesome. They knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They just needed a nudge. They needed just a little bit of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I started doing what I'm doing. And you know, all those pieces were part of the puzzle as to why I decided to just do what I'm doing. And it's taken off. And, you know, and now we're here. You know, I have the podcast, which I think you guys have listened to, which we're going to work out you guys getting on. I think you guys, I know you guys, I need to have you guys on. And I do an Instagram page, and it's just leadership stuff, simple stuff, nothing that people haven't heard before. It's just me with my experiences and things that I wish I would have known. Like, I guess to say it as, I wish I knew then what I knew now, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And I mean, that's it, man. That was the genesis of it. And, you know, it's difficult. I mean, this stuff was, you know, years ago, and I find it like I can't even get through a sentence without getting choked up over it. But, you know, it really affirms and solidifies why I need to keep doing this. Regardless of what people say. Not a lot of people have said anything mean, but, you know, I mean, it's only a matter of time before the guys I work with figure out what it is and who I am. And it's going to be game on, and I'm just going to have to,
sure.
I'm just going to have to smile and take it. But, I mean, that's where I'm at, man. And every time, you know, I just look at it as, you know, John and my mom would be proud. I really hope they are, and I know they are. And that's why I'm here. You know, I'm just going to do that, and wherever it goes is where it goes. If it's great, it's great. If it's not, it is what it is, and it's as simple as delete and start a new chapter. And that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. And like you said, sometimes that's all people need is that extra knowledge. Like, no, we're going to sit here in this and do this a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And not just for that very specific situation, but so many situations in life. Like, no, this sucks right now, but we're going to we're going to stay here. We're going to do this a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's never over until you let it be over, and it's not done till it's done.
Yeah,
and you're the one that's going to decide when it's over, regardless of what the situation of the problem is. You're in charge of your own destiny. You need to buckle down and work on it, and you can get through anything.
What's up, everybody? It's TJ here. We are at my favorite part of the podcast, by and large, because this is where we get to thank our patrons. You guys and gals have been awesome and have allowed us to create this great community. It's active. We're getting the workouts in. We're getting the meditations, the mantras, and so much more value. So special shout out to this week's patrons, Cameron M., Eric H., Nathan M., Jake R., Warren P., Travis Y., Matthew L., oh God, my friend from Belgium, I'm going to butcher this, Wooter. Bro, I don't know. You're going to have to send me a voice message because I know Spanish and English, but I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sorry, man. And last but not least, Matt A. Guys, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. You are allowing us to continue this project and continue reaching people, getting even better guests on the podcast, and just doing great things. Tell your friends, tell everybody. Again, thank you so much. Bye. Hey, everyone. It's TJ here from Keep the Promise. As you know, this podcast is all about helping firefighters become more resilient and well-rounded so that they can be a force for good within their fire department and their community. But today, I want to talk to you about something that's just as important, and that is supporting firefighters who are going through tough times. When one of our fellow firefighters is off work because they have to go to the Center for Excellence, they have to go to rehab, they have mental health issues, or they have other health issues, it really takes away their support system and it wreaks havoc on their finances and their family's finances. And many times, these brothers and sisters are left to struggle alone, away from their support system and the people who love them without the resources they need to recover. That's why I'm setting a bold new goal. And that is to reach 150 total patrons on Patreon so that we can start a fund to help firefighters and their families during these challenging times. And I need your help to make it happen. With your support on Patreon, we'll be able to provide financial assistance to firefighter families who are battling things like addiction, depression, and cancer. We're going to help alleviate the financial strain that can come with being away from the fire department so that our brothers and sisters can focus on healing and recovering. Now, reaching 150 total patrons is a big goal, but I believe that we can do it together. And when we do, we'll be able to make a real difference in the lives of those who serve and protect alongside us. So, if you're not already a patron, I invite you to join us today. Head over to joinkeepthepromise.com and sign up today. Again, that is joinkeepthepromise.com. And if you already are a patron, thank you so much for your support. You'll be receiving some exclusive rewards and perks as a way of saying thanks. Together, let's show our fellow firefighters that we've got their back just like they always have ours. Thank you for listening. Let's get started with the episode.